Hey folks, and thanks for tuning in. I was sat here a few days ago thinking about Battlefield 4 and how the maps were going to play and how they were going to feel compared to Battlefield 3. Of course, I'm big into my esports, so I have a certain idea of what I want from the maps and what I like or what I'd like to see. And it kind of made me think of the current breed of maps which we've got right now with Battlefield 3, which kind of then led me into the question about the first DLC that we had for Battlefield 3, Close Quarters. It caused a bit of a stir when it was released due to the fact that, as the name would suggest, it was close quarters combat, and completely the other end of the spectrum from what Battlefield heritage is and what Battlefield is all about. So I ask you, is this map pack really Battlefield? And is there anyone out there that would like to see these sorts of maps in Battlefield 4? Let me say that I enjoyed Close Quarters for all its criticism, but I agree that it isn't really Battlefield. I'm an infantry player, so the idea of close quarters fighting and such without vehicles is something I rather like, but even I find it hard not to compare these close quarters maps to the likes of Call of Duty, a comparison which many before me have made. Now in the background, of course, I am playing some close quarters. I'm using the MP5K with a laser sight and a red dot sight. It's not a bad weapon. I've got the extended mags on it as well. Very good for these sorts of maps. I think I'm in a 24-man server, not quite full right now, but there's still plenty of action going on. I did actually join a 64-man server right before this, on Close Quarters, on Donya Fortress, and it was just crazy. These maps aren't designed for 64 players, they're only designed for 24, I think, max. And so putting 64 players on it, it's just insane. Which is crazy to think that a game like Battlefield, which on PC is designed for 64 players, you release a DLC that limits the amount of players that can play on each map. That seems a little bit counterintuitive. But this isn't so much about the DLC. I mean, it's been reviewed plenty times before. This is more about whether these sorts of maps will appear in Battlefield 4 and whether we want these sorts of maps appearing in Battlefield 4. And that is the main question. I suspect the answer to that is no. I would imagine most of the Battlefield fans, myself included, would not like these sorts of maps included in Battlefield 4, or as a DLC for that matter. I also suspect DICE may very well have learnt their lesson, and although the Close Quarters maps were very well made, we have to admit that, they looked amazing, the textures were great, it's not really a Battlefield map, and I'm hoping they've realised that now. Now, some leaked information in terms of the first DLC pack says that the name of the first DLC pack will be called Drone Strike, which, dare I say it, has a bit of a Call of Duty ring to it, but alas, it's hard to say right now what that will entail. If it will have an actual drone that rains down hell, or if it's set in some sort of drone factory, whatever it may be. We have no idea right now what the actual map will be relating to, or what the sizes are going to be like either. We'll have to wait and see for the first DLC information to be released. But that's getting ahead of the game, because right now we're focusing on the actual vanilla Battlefield 4 rather than the first DLCs. I would like to see a good mix of maps between the sort of Grand Baz size all the way to the armoured kill maps of, say, Alborz Mountain or Bandar Desert. And also, judging from the information we have so far, at least part of the single-player portion of the game is going to be set in China, or the surrounding area. So maybe some part of Shanghai City, something like that. Now, I think some idea of a Shanghai City map could be amazing as a multiplayer map. And it's important to remember that while a lot of people might not play the single-player component of the game, most of the multiplayer maps are actually based off locations in the single-player campaign. The maps aren't pulled directly from single player, but the locations and the areas are usually based around the story and the inspiration from the single player. So having some sort of Shanghai City map, I think that would be a huge, huge hit. And obviously they can build other ideas on that. So as always, we're going to be playing a waiting game to see what maps DICE decide to release with Battlefield 4 and then with the forthcoming DLCs. But I think overall for Battlefield 3, the maps that we have been given have been brilliant. I think people were skeptical about the close quarters maps, and they were worried that the following DLCs would be in the same sort of vein. But DICE had a plan. You know, they had a structure for each of their DLCs. You know, you had the Close Quarters, you had the Armored Kill, you had the Aftermath. Each one had a distinct sort of set of characteristics and sort of style and thought process behind it. And we have to trust in what they're doing. I mean, the Close Quarters maps may not have been everyone's cup of tea, but I guarantee the ones that came after certainly were. And they did a great job with that. So let's hope that they have learned from Battlefield 3. I'm sure that they have. I would really like to see, and I don't think this will happen, but I'd really like to see maps in Battlefield 3 that also have a second variant for esports or competitive play. Now, for those of you, I think I've mentioned this before, but for those of you who've played Counterstrike, the way Counterstrike works is it has a standard map, then they have what's called an SE version. And this SE version has fog, props, things taken away from it to clean out the map for competitive play. I would love to see Battlefield having that sort of map. So let's say Grand Bazaar, for example, on Battlefield 3. Grand Bazaar is a brilliant map. In areas, though, it gives the attacking or defending, depending on which way you're looking at it, a significant advantage because of all the fog and smog that's on the map. When you're in the market area, it's very, very difficult to see onto the road and into like the palace area. And these sorts of things would be fantastic for esports if this little bit of extra thought went into these and that was sorted. But alas, we will see. I hope you've enjoyed it and found this interesting, so please like and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.